Welcome, everyone. This is the Progressive Mind Show here in the city of Chicago. My name is Senna, aka Alinco. Today's topic is domestic violence. We are trying to overcome the challenges. Will we be able to achieve that this evening? Maybe with your help and help from the community. This is the Progressive Mind Show. We might be able to do so. This evening, we have great guests. As usual, they are all community members. They're going to be helping to understand. We are going to be continuing this evening with the discussion. As I mentioned, we're live on the Progressive Minds page on Facebook. Also on YouTube, if you type the Progressive Mind Show, you shall be catching us. We are extremely excited to be carrying live right now on My Star Radio. My Star Radio is based out in the Washington, D.C. area. It is a Pan-African programming for the discerning listener. Please tune in right now. You can catch us live. This evening, we want to engage my great guest. Before I do that, please allow me to give you the verse of the day. It is from Proverbs 11, chapter 16. It says, the wages of the righteous bring them life, but the income of the wicked brings them punishment. The wages of the righteous bring them life, bring you life. So you want to be you want to try and do good in this life, all right? You gain nothing by being wicked. You only bring punishment to yourself. On that note, we'd like to introduce these beautiful people here. Ashia Hasnayan is a good old friend, a community activist, community contributor. She's a great person, family person. She's the founder and executive director for Empowering Women, NFP. We shall be hearing more about that from her. And then we have Shavona Nicole. Shavona Nicole is a CEO of Shavona Nicole, right? And she's also, she is a self-love development coach and a hypnotherapist. The first time I saw the word hypnotherapist, I'm like, should I really be having this lady on my show? Hypnotherapist? Do I have to engage this lady any further? I'm just kidding. But we'll soon get to know more about who a hypnotherapist is and what she does. Next to her and is my own newfound friend, Dr. Ali Jaffrey. He is a geologist by profession and a martial arts and self-defense trainer. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the Progressive Mind Show. Okay, looks like we have you on mute, and I will try to correct that. Can you hear me now? Excellent.
Yes,
excellent. Yes. Great. You once again welcome, and we'll get right into it. This evening, the discussion this evening is not self-defense. Self-defense is for Dr. Jeffrey. We'll leave that to him. The topic for today is domestic violence. We're trying to find how we can overcome the challenges. We know it's a prevalent situation in our world today, not just in America, all over the world. However, we won't be able to tackle the world's problem. We will try and lift that off our shoulders and make our shoulder a little lighter. We don't want to burden ourselves tonight. So we'll try to deal with domestic violence in America, right? But who knows? You might be outside the world, wherever on this globe, and might be and we'll be able to get something from this. We have the self-defense coach here, so who knows? You all might be able to get something. Share the feed now. If you're on the Facebook page, you can also go on the YouTube page and copy the link, share with your friends. Please go ahead and do so now. Share. Now let's go to my Ashia. Like I said, you are not new on the show, so Shavona is our latest, freshest guest. So Shavona, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with ShavonnaNicole.com. That's your website.
Yeah, so thank you again for having me. And I am a self-love development coach and also a hypnotherapist. So, I work with women. I help women who have been in toxic relationships and help them to recover and heal so that they aren't, bitter and carrying baggage, in other relationships, and then to break the cycle of toxic relationships.
That is beautiful. I'm sure it's a tedious work, isn't it?
Well, not tedious. I don't think that it's tedious. I think that it is, very rewarding to see people who can, to work with women so that they can really heal. Trauma can definitely have an effect on that person, to the people that they love, to the people around them, have an effect on their health. And so a lot of times when that, when it's suppressed, it can have such a negative effect that it makes them hard to succeed in other areas of their life. And so to really get down to the root of that issue and to really help them to move forward in the way that they want is, very rewarding.
All right. Thank you. Now, let's hear from Ali Jaffrey. You are a geologist and you also a self-defense trainer. But tell us a little bit more about Ali so we can get to know you better.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And what I do is I am a self-defense instructor, and I work mainly with women and children. And usually when I'm working with women, these are women that have gone through sexual assault at some point in their lives, or they have been in a domestic abusive relationship, or maybe they are in an abusive relationship at this point when they're coming to me. And it's tricky. It's definitely challenging because a lot of times they're coming to me for these lessons, but they're still with this person who is hurting them. So you got to find a fine balance. Like, the first thing I tell them, you can't be in this, but when emotions are involved, it's
a different thing. But apart from you being these two things in terms of your profession, who is Ali Jaffrey when you are not, in these two spaces?
Well, then I'm pretty outdoorsy. I live in Colorado and I live here for a reason. Most people in my profession, if they're geologists in the oil and gas industry, they're all down in Texas and Houston. And I chose this lifestyle just so I could spend as much time outdoors as possible.
Right, that's beautiful. Yeah. Arshia, tell us, for those who have not seen you yet, and this is the first time they hear from you, outside Empowering Women NFP, who is Arshia in a nutshell? Let me give the secret out. I know you are a Liverpool fanatic. I will have to say that for you. Go ahead.
Well, yes. So European champions, EPL champions, not doing so well right now, but that's okay. It's just the beginning of the season. But who is Arshia? Arshia is, she's a mother. She's an educator. She runs a domestic violence shelter. She loves to read. She loves to walk outside, and she likes to help others. So that is what Arshia is all about. She's engaging. She is involved in her community. Whatever is happening in my community, I would like to be the first one to go out there and take action. So, so I consider myself to be an activist. I come from a family of activism where people have been involved in their communities throughout their life. So that is something that was kind of instilled in me at a very young age. And I continue to do that. I'm an educator by profession. I'm a high school teacher. I don't do that anymore because I want to give my full-time attention to empowering women, NFP, and the women that we serve in the Chicago community.
Okay. So let's stay with NFP. I wanted to know more about NFP. We want to get into a little bit detail about your organization. So NFP, how long has NFP been in existence? What's your jurisdiction? And exactly, and some specifics about some of the services that you provide.
Absolutely. Well, I've been in the field of domestic violence for 5 years, and Empowering Women NFP is new. We started in July, and our focus is the Chicago area. So serving women from all backgrounds, from all neighborhoods. Our primary focus is the Northwest side and the South side. And what is it that we are able to provide these women through Empowering Women NFP is that we're able to give them emergency housing, emergency immediate shelter. Number two, we're able to help them with any kind of legal help that they might need. And these are free services that we provide to them. We're able to provide them any type of counseling, case management, therapy that they might need, wellness health that they might need. And we also are going into job training, job building, resume building, how to look for jobs. We are all unfortunately stuck at home during the COVID pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs. So we've got an amazing team that helps these people find jobs that are suited to their credentials. So that is also something that Empowering Women does. And this is October. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
It's key for us to get the word out, what domestic violence looks like, how ugly it is, and how it has escalated exponentially during these COVID pandemic time period, and how we can end this cycle. So, all of October, this is what we are going to be doing. We've got awareness building campaigns that we are running. We're running them with our local partners, and we are working together to let the community know we are here for you and how we can help. And it's okay to talk about this. There's no need to hide this problem anymore, because mental illness, you've got depression, anxiety. I know that Shavona can come in and talk more about that, but these are all issues that are escalating in our community, and we really need to address them.
Excellent. Shavona, tell us more about Shavona Nicole Company or organization. Exactly what services you provide and how long your establishment has been around.
Yes. Well, I have been coaching for about 7 years now. I'm also a therapist, and I'm also a certified domestic violence professional as well. So, in my background as a psychotherapist and my, training as a hypnotherapist, I combine the two to really help my clients to break some of the mental barriers that they have. It's very difficult for my clients to change their mindset, and especially in a domestic violent relationship or toxic relationship, it becomes more mentally difficult to break that cycle, and they can leave that relationship, but then the chances of them getting into another relationship, that's similarly toxic, or if not worse, those chances increase. And so I work with them privately, one-on-one. Most of my clients are women who have it together, or appear to have it together in all of the other areas of their life, but they seem to, get into these relationships where they are disrespected, and it's very toxic, or with narcissistic men. And, they really want to overcome that. And so I work with them privately. Sometimes I have group coaching, and I incorporate hypnosis in the treatment.
Okay, hypnosis. Okay, that's one of the things I'm very interested in, hypnosis. How do you hypnotize someone? I mean, how do you perform how do you literally perform that on someone and get the best result out of them? So I want you to tell us the process. But Aline, you are a self-trainer, and so maybe quickly, if you can just tell us exactly what you do with this woman who, not just women, but anybody who's going through domestic violence that needs self-training or self-protection techniques.
And man, the first step in self-defense is actually avoiding being in a bad situation.
Okay.
And so the first thing I tell women who are in an abusive relationship is to get out. It's pretty simple. I mean, but in certain cases, when they just don't want to get out or can't get out, that's when I have to equip them with the skills they need to be able to protect themselves.
Okay. So What you just said is interesting. Something that I think about, and I know a lot of people also think about is that why do domestic violence victims not get out? Why can they run? Why can they leave? As a psychotherapist, Shavona, and can you maybe help us get into the minds of, those victims and what makes them stay?
Yeah, there's several, numerous reasons why victims stay in domestic violent relationships.
Okay.
There's,
the top 5, maybe.
The top 5,
maybe, and then we can go down the list if we have time. But yeah.
Yeah. So, one main reason that they stay is because if there's a family, with that person, they have a fear of being responsible for taking the family up. Sometimes there's a financial dependency. It's very common in relationships where there's domestic violence that one of the control tactics that's used is financial abuse. And so a lot of these women have, or not women, but a lot of the victims have, are now in the position where they are financially dependent upon their abusive partner, and it's not that easy to leave. A lot of it as well is mindset, and if there's mental and emotional abuse, it's very difficult, again, mentally, to be able to feel empowered, and being in an abusive relationship, you're being torn down. And so a lot of victims do not feel empowered enough to feel like they can accomplish being on their own, feeling like they deserve happiness, feeling like they can accomplish some of their personal goals, and then just feeling lost and not knowing who they are because so much energy and so much time and everything is revolved around the abuser and, pretty much survival mode. So a lot of the bigger barriers are mental and emotional barriers that keep them there. So it's not easy to say, just get out. There's a lot of other factors to consider, and therefore, it becomes a familiarity, especially if there's been abuse in childhood, and they have childhood trauma. This is something that's familiar. And so being in a safe environment where there's not chaos, there's not abuse, feels a little scary, and it feels like the unfamiliar. So, I know a lot of times the easy response is to say, get out, but there are, or not even feeling safe enough, feeling like this person will come after them, or they're threatening family members, or they're threatening their children, they're threatening to kill themselves and to kill the woman. So there's a lot of, and it might be a combination of all those things that are keeping victims in the domestic violence, in that toxic relationship, abusive relationship.
Okay. Thanks for giving us a detailed explanation why people stay. But Ashia, you being in this field for a long time, I'm sure you know a few reasons why people stay. Can you help us understand one or two of them?
Absolutely. It's, there are multiple reasons, but the one main big reason is that people haven't seen anything better. This is what they're used to. It's acceptable in their mind that it's okay for somebody, to hit you or to slap you or to push you. So these preconceived notions exist in the minds of these domestic violence survivors, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of courage to get out of that mindset because you really haven't seen anything different. You come into a relationship, it starts off with a very loving, caring, nurturing relationship until the control comes into play. And you don't see that. And once that control is in place, then it is extremely hard to get away. You have been alienated from your friends. You've been alienated from your family. And, you are told that if you do reach out to someone, I will, take something away from you. If children are involved, I might hurt the child. If pets are involved, I might do something to the animal. So this dependency, this mindset is what needs to change for majority of the people that stay in these relationships. And it takes a lot out of someone to say, I'm ready to leave. And when that person is ready to leave, if on the other side, you don't have the right people reaching out and saying, I'm here to help you, they are going to be sucked right back in to that cycle. And that's why this cycle is so vicious, is so dangerous, because the right people are not around to say, I will help you.
Right. So it's most of the time the feeling of I have nowhere else to go. And this is probably what I'm going through is probably better than anything else out there. Right. It's,
because you don't know anything better. You don't have anybody to discuss it with.
Yeah.
You've been told to stay away from friends or family. You've totally been isolated. It's basically a lockdown. Why has domestic violence escalated so much during the pandemic? It's because they're in isolation. It's difficult for people that are not going through a domestic, abuse situation. We get edgy, we get worked up, we need to let our energy out, right? So it's frustrating for us. So for somebody who's going through this on a day in, day out basis, it's much more difficult. So for them to reach out is something that it takes a lot out of a person to say, I need help.
Where is the problem stored at? Is it more in the mind or in the heart, or a sophisticated combination of both that we can place a hand on?
I think it's a combination of both, because everybody wants relationships to work. You've fallen in love with a person that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with. This person is supposed to be the one that's supposed to comfort you, care for you, protect you. These are all the technical terms of love that come into play.
Yeah.
And majority of the times, the abuser will try to find a partner that he can literally make dependent on him. So she is constantly relying on him, whether it's his finances, his resources, whether it's through immigration. There's so many ways that abusers work and try to brainwash these victims. I don't like to use the word victim, but these survivors is it's very difficult. So yes, it is in the mind, but you have to get out of the mind and get that heart and mind connection kind of separated. And it requires help. It requires service agencies, people who are out there, people who are professional. Everything that we do at Empowering Women, we are a trauma-informed organization. Our programs are trauma sensitive, so we make sure that everybody that is coming to us realizes that there's a sensitivity to this issue. Okay. And we need to be very, very careful when we're treading along this trajectory of healing and trying to get these survivors to a better place in life.
Right. It's 6:30 p.m. here in the studios of the Progressive Minds, located in Chicago. It is a month of domestic violence, and this evening's topic is domestic violence, overcoming the challenges. I have great guests here, Ali, Jeffrey, Shavona, and Ashia, who are helping to discuss this. If you just joined us, please share the feed on Facebook. Or if you're not on Facebook, we are on YouTube. It is the Progressive Mind Show. Please help share there. We have some have already joined us. And Lala Ndum. I'm going to read your comments very soon. Our pastor Ate Akrong is also here. Mike LA is watching us. Rebecca Mode is also here. 1 second. Let me go here and see if I can find more people that I can see on my screen. If you want to call us, we're going to give you the number in a little bit. We have a calling number that you can ring in. It is 815-277-5047. Please go ahead and give us a ring if you want to contribute or ask a question while we engage in this dialogue. Now, I want to know, let's try to see if we can identify some early symptoms. But then before we do that, Ali, if you can help maybe with all the people that come to you for self-defense techniques so they can protect themselves, have you had a situation whereby, or maybe you can share with us a particular time, some of the stories that have been shared with you as the reason why they couldn't leave at the time they were supposed to leave?
Yeah, I definitely can. I mean, I've worked with a lot of young women, and when I ask them why they don't leave, the first thing they tell me is that, well, I love him. They're still in love with this person, even though this person is hurting them. So they start making excuses. He's a great guy as long as he doesn't drink. He only does this when he's drunk. Or he's a great guy until he gets high. And he doesn't get high very often, but when he does, he's going to do something like that. Or he's a great guy until he's having a stressful week at work. So, you know what? These guys don't even have to do anything. A lot of times these women are so in love with this person that they're making excuses for their bad behavior. And it's unfortunate to see that, because I'm like, man, you know what? Yeah, I'm sure you're in love with him, but if he truly loved you, he wouldn't be doing this sort of stuff. And it's bad because I see them, and sometimes they'll come in and they have a bruise. One time I was training a girl, and she came in and her hand was wrapped up. I was like, what's going on? And what her boyfriend had done is he got drunk. She was in the car with him. She wouldn't let him drive. So he took the car keys and he stabbed her with the car key on her hand so hard that it actually popped out the other side.
Wow. And,
you know, car keys are blunt. They're not sharp objects. So can you imagine the force that it must have taken for him to do that to her?
Yeah.
But the fact that she didn't leave, even after that, she was still with him.
It is maybe the definition we'll give that kind of love is crazy love. And how does one fall into that? Nobody can be blamed for falling in love with, who they choose to fall in love with, and more so deciding to upgrade their love from regular love to crazy love. Maybe you move from regular love to super love to crazy love. I think it's only when you are in crazy love is when you can allow these things to go on for a long time. They say that domestic violence thrives in intimate, interdependent, and long-term relationships. And so it looks like these are the areas where we find most people who are victims. But then maybe you all can help us understand, is domestic violence, does one's upbringing have contributed a lot to people who become domestic violent abusers and abusees, if there's any word where like the recipients of that, right, the victims. Does your upbringing contribute to you becoming a victim or an abuser? Shavona.
Yes, it does. If you grew up in a household where there was domestic violence, your chances of becoming an abuser or a victim, increases.
Very high, right?
I believe it doubles, if I'm not mistaken. And so, the mindset there is that this is familiar, or this is normal, this is this is just what happens in relationships, and so there is, and a lot of victims have said that they watch their mother or they watch their father engage in this abusive relationship, and as a child you're like, I never want to have this happen to me, right? Like, I never want to be in a relationship like this. And they fight so hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. But on a subconscious level, again, it's what's familiar. And so it's hard to connect the pieces. It's like, man, I witnessed this as a child. I hated seeing my mother go through this. I hated seeing my father go through this. I hated the dynamic. I hate, what was happening to me. Mm-hmm. But on a subconscious level, because whether they didn't have the proper support systems, whether they didn't really have the opportunity or have the outlet to be able to process the things that were happening, and again, to retrain the brain after that trauma has occurred on a subconscious level, that's the very thing that they end up getting into. And so, yes, definitely experiencing or being in a home where there's domestic violence increases your chances of becoming an abuser or a victim.
A victim.
And so the cycle just ends up, unfortunately, continuing.
All right. I don't know if any of you wanted to add something to it, but I wanted to ask my next question. Okay.
Yeah, I do want to add something to it. It's, a lot of times people will assume that someone's socioeconomic status has something to do with this. There's, this person is coming from a background where they had a tough upbringing. They were maybe even as young adults, they were in and out of jail. Whereas this individual, went to college, super successful, comes from a very affluent family. So we won't expect this person to behave a certain way.
Right.
Unfortunately, what I've seen is these guys who are abusive, they're across the board. I mean, you really can't stereotype that on the basis of their socioeconomic status or, even race for that matter. And unfortunately, there are stereotypes out there. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I see this literally across the board.
Okay, so that's a very good point you made, because there's also that notion that certain races or certain ethnic groups are more prone to, be, engaged in domestic violence and whatnot. So thanks for making that point. Ashia, you want us to ask something real quick before my next question? Okay,
No.
All right, cool. So are there signs? Who does a domestic violence victim look like? Is there anything you can see on a person and identify as someone who may be going through this?
There's absolutely nothing. Unless you see the bruises on somebody's face, which many people hide very, very carefully with makeup and concealer, nobody knows. There is no set definition of what a domestic violence victim survivor will look like. But we definitely do know what an abuser looks like.
Okay.
They will come across very kind. They will come across very sweet, very friendly, very nurturing, with their partner when they're with a large group of people or in the company of friends. They're extremely dominating. They're extremely cunning and clever, and they keep an eye on what the survivor is doing, whether it's her phone, whether it's her car. Everything is tapped. Everything is monitored. The timings that she will go to a gym class or to work or to pick up the kids. They have everything timed out with this person, so they know exactly where this person is going to be at what time.
Wow.
So no definition of what a survivor is going to look like, but definitely certain signs are there for what the aggressor is going to look like.
Wow. Thank you for mentioning the signs, because we I guess we're going to talk about the signs and symptoms now. Shavonna, you have anything to add to things you can look out for in your partner to identify potential, violence, in whether physical or emotional? And I know, Ali, you might also be thinking about that whilst we go on a short break. When we come back, we shall acknowledge our Facebook audience and then get back to these questions. Okay, so please stay tuned. You have been watching and listening to the Progressive Mind Show here in the studios, here in the Chicago studio. My name is Sana, aka Alinco. We are excited to be carried on My Star Radio in the Washington, D.C. area. My Star Radio is a Pan-African programming for the discerning listener. Very exciting moments for the Progressive Minds. More to come. We thank you, our audience, for being supportive up to this point. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. Welcome back. This evening is Domestic Violence, Overcoming the Challenges with my great guest. We have tried to delve into what makes someone not leave, some of the causes and the symptoms. We're trying to get into the signs and symptoms of an abuser and potential, and also the victim. I don't know if there's anything on the victim to be recognized as someone who may be suffering from that. But my guests are very vexed and experienced in this field. We're trying to see if we can identify those. But obviously, there are a lot of signs and symptoms with people who are abusers. And Ashia just alluded to those, some of them, before we went on that short break. Remember that you're watching this show on Facebook Live. It's Progressive Minds. That's the page. And on YouTube is the Progressive Minds Show. Please make sure you are sharing the feed so that we can help promote this sensitive issue that we're all dealing with. And this month also being domestic violence month, we are very excited that on going forward, you can listen to this show live on My Star Radio, and we hope to get more of this in the days to come. Go on the Progressive Minds page, the website, which is theprogressivemindshow.com, and make a contribution to us, because that is what we can use to improve on what we're doing. So we definitely are encouraging you to support us on our website, theprogressivemindshow.com. Also, you can call us on our business line at 773-691-4932. The calling number is 817-407-5047. Please go ahead and make that. No, it's 815-277-5047. Sorry about that. Shavona, do you have any signs that you can maybe help us identify from domestic abusers?
Yeah, there are some signs. Were you still talking?
No. I'm saying I said apart from what Ashia just mentioned.
Yes. So there are some, and you mean signs for the abuser, right? Are we talking about signs for the abuser now? Okay. So, there are some signs, again, like I mentioned with, if they talk about their history, right? If the abuser talks about their history and they're just saying that they grew up in this type of household, keep your eyes open. There are some signs where, pay attention to how they treat, people in authority. Whether they have, issues with authority and other people in power. Pay attention to how they talk about other women, and are they calling them, derogatory names, and how they talk about their ex, or if the ex has a history, if they were abusive to their ex. Another common sign is, wanting to, be in the relationship too fast, like too much too soon. And so, you've been dating for a month and they're like, I love you so much. Let's move in together. I want to take care of you, trying to be Prince Charming and things like that. Like, that's a red flag as well. And so, wanting to talk to you, wanting you to be available, right then and there, whether it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. and questioning where you've been. And I really needed to talk to you because I miss you so much. I just love you. I want to spend all my time with you. Why do you want to spend so much time with other people? Those are all red flags because, in healthy relationships, there is also dependency, right? Like, and people have the right to have your own life outside of that. But when they try to consume your time and consume your thoughts. And so the reason why a lot of victims, I guess, or, the reason why it's so easy to fall into that, because you may consider it flattering, or you may consider it a compliment, right? That they really want to spend all this time with you. They want to take care of you. But these are red flags in the beginning, And so, although the abusers are putting their best foot forward, and they're being, charming in the beginning, these are flags to look out for. The too much too soon, wanting to consume your time, wanting to, question you, your every movement, signs of jealousy. But the more subtle ones is, notice how they handle a bad day. Are they explosive? When you guys are having your first dispute or argument, are they hitting below the belt? Really early, you opened up and became emotionally vulnerable, maybe, talked about your past, and then they bring that up and throw that against you. That's already a form of, emotional abuse. And so it's not just because they had a bad day or just because they were drinking, because you can have substance use issues. Plenty of people with substance use disorder are not abusive. Plenty of people who got fired from their job are not abusive. So one is not equal to other. But these are things that you can pay attention to and notice that, your senses should go up, red flags should go up, that this is not okay.
It's not okay. And then right there and then you should be trying to get help, right? But Ali, with you, I think maybe you might be able to help us identify if there are signs with people, with victims, because when they come to you, you said, you mentioned one, like maybe a bruise on the eye or something, but are there any body language that you picked up or some mannerisms of these abusers or the victims when they come to you that you would like to share with us?
And honestly, there's none.
Okay.
There's no way. There's no way you can tell.
Wow, which is very, very dangerous, right? You can't. So when they come to you to say, okay, I just want to learn some techniques so I can defend myself, or do they actually open up to say, you know what, I'm going through this and I need some skills?
It depends. A lot of times the way I start with someone new is I do give them a call. I'm like, okay, what is your motivation for learning to do this? Because all the lessons I give, I don't have a cookie cutter approach. Everything is tailor made depending on what the person wants to learn. So I do try to get involved and find out what their motivation is for learning. But a lot of times I won't find that out until their third or fourth lesson. And then sometimes I will see the bruises and then I'll know. Or like I said, maybe if something is wrapped up, or, or maybe we're training and they're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm hurting on my rib on the side. And it's like, well, how did that happen? And then they'll come up with some silly excuse as to why it happened. And having done this for as long as I have, I'm like, no, people don't run into objects and hurt their ribs right here. So what's going on? And then they'll start telling you, well, it's someone grabbed, he picked me up or he grabbed me really hard. And in the process of doing so, he busted up some ribs. So, and once they open up, and then it's opening up a Pandora's box, because then you get a list of all the things that this person does to them, and it's tough. It's tough. Because my first reaction is like, oh yeah, where does this guy live? Let me go sort him out. I can't do that. So then your next reaction is, oh, why don't we call the cops? This person should not be allowed to do this to anyone. But it's, again, when they're stuck, they don't want anyone getting involved.
Wow. I mean, I think we're all dumbfounded. So it's a very, very difficult issue and a situation for anybody to be in, because I believe in my heart that the victims don't want it. But somehow, but I'm not sure if the abusers enjoy doing these things, or is because they are also struggling from maybe some mental illness or some very bad situation. I don't really know, but maybe Ashia and Shavona, you can help break down this for us after we acknowledge our listeners and audience here. They actually are family. This great family who have always been tuning in. So Anlara, as I mentioned earlier, is here with us, and we have Ate. Ate has a comment, but before that, let's see if I can recognize Anlara's comment. She says, yes, Shavona, please speak the truth. She goes on to say, it takes 7 times for a person to leave a toxic relationship. 7 times. Wow. If you have a story to share, please, maybe you can type or call in to share. Maybe you never know who you would inspire, okay, or who you would encourage to take a step, take that first step. Probably people probably have been in this situation for years. So we're trying to see how we can help one another. So please feel free to share your story if anybody's out there who wants to. She says, Ata says, many of the people who stay in such relationships are also in positions of dependence and most often rely heavily on the abusers and cannot consider a scenario where they can make it without the abuser. Many have dependent personalities as well. Thank you so much, my brother, for sharing. Rebecca is obviously acknowledging what is going on. Thank you so much. Ate again says, we are well aware of violence against women, but men also get abused. Yes, we're coming to that, brother. What are the statistics on male abuse victims, and what resources are available for male abuse victims? Thank you. That's a great question. Okay, and somebody also alluded to that. Edith says that I hear your guests correct themselves when speaking of women being victimized. Please speak on male victims if they exist. So yeah, my guests have, their experience. So so they know how to balance their thoughts, their submissions. But thank you so much, Edith, for your point. Rebecca says sometimes some people find it difficult to leave when they have kids with their husbands. I think that's a very, very key and important factor. And she says, Amna says, agreed. It can be anyone. And then Johnny Wood says, very important topic. Thank you so much. Black Jesus says, yep. Black Jesus, what are you saying yep to? There's so many comments. Be specific. That's my brother right there, so I can mess with him. Can we get some statistics? Who wants to take that? First, in terms of domestic violence on both sexes, if there are any numbers, Ashia, you want to help us identify some numbers? Okay.
Am I on mute?
You are on now. We can hear you.
Thank you. 1 in 4 men go through a domestic violence abusive relationship, whereas when you compare it to women, it's 1 in 3. So that is a pretty big number. There's
and I'm here.
There's 4 of us, that are sitting and together, and of the 4 people that are sitting here, if you look at the ratio, 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men has been subjected to some form of domestic abuse, not necessarily battery or physical abuse, but some sort of abuse in their entire life. Another biggest statistic is roughly 12 million. I would say it's over 12 million, if I'm correct. 12 million men and women have been subjected to a form of domestic violence.
12 million.
12 million, yes.
In this country.
Million in this country, okay, in a year have been subjected to domestic violence, which includes rape, stalking somebody, or physically abusing, hitting them or beating them. And that comes out to 24 people in a minute that are being abused in this country.
24.
Wow.
In 1 minute. So, that's these are big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So
scary numbers.
It's scary numbers. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we just don't talk about it enough. So again, I want to thank you, Senna, for continuously inviting this conversation on your platform, because this conversation needs to be had. And the more we talk about it, the more awareness we can bring and shed light on what it is that is going on in our communities and how we can reach those individuals. It needs to be easy for them. We can say we're here, but how do they get in touch with us, right? That is an even bigger question.
Right.
Not everybody knows, okay, there's an Empowering Women organization that helps survivors, or not everybody's going to know that there is a Shavana or an Ali out there who can help them, mm-hmm, right? So it's your community that comes in. It's the people around you that, mm-hmm, you tell. And it is, again, that it's a movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It truly is, is a movement. And once one person knows, it's a ripple kind of an effect. Mm-hmm. It gets out there in the public. Hospitals need to know what you are doing, the emergency department. The police stations need to know who our organizations are, our service organizations, what it is that we do. If you're in immigrant population areas, heavily immigrant populations go through a lot more of domestic violence because, again, going back to what Shavana said, they're dependent on the perpetrator, mm-hmm, on the abuser. They're there because of them. They've gotten married. They've come into this country. They don't know the rules and regulations of this country. They've got their citizenship, their visas through their spouse. So the spouse can really have a big hold on their life.
Okay.
So men and women, it really, 1 in 3, 1 in 4.
Mm. So the numbers show us obviously that women suffer this most, and then maybe children, and then men, if I'm correct. I don't know if Shavana also has some stats, or maybe Ali or Shavana has some stats to share with us. If you do, please help us. If not, we can go to the next thing we want to touch on. Okay. All right. So that said, I have a comment on here. He says, what has been identified? Okay, that's a question from Aqua Dada. He says, what has been identified as the main source of domestic violence? That was mentioned earlier, Aqua, but would definitely have them respond to that. Anybody would like to respond to our guest? I mean, our audience question.
Well, the main, you said the main source, but the main reason for abusive behavior for domestic violence is, it's about power and control, and it's about establishing power over, one person in the relationship. And so all of the, tactics that, you hear about, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, financial, sexual, all of those are manipulation tools to gain power and control over one person. And so, as you know, it's impossible to control a whole nother human being. And so this is why you see things escalate. You have to, install fear. You have to make them feel afraid to make their own decisions, afraid to leave the relationship, afraid that they can't do it without them. And so a lot of people mistake domestic violence for, just people who have substance, issues, or people who just had a rough childhood, or, people who are just have anger management problems. But no, it's about being strategic and finding ways to manipulate and control their partner for the purpose of having power. Is a power dynamic there. And so that is at the root of domestic violence relationships. And so I know, Sina, you said earlier, you don't know if they enjoy it or whatever, and it's not necessarily about enjoyment, but it is about, taking away someone's right to make their own decisions. And so whether it stems from, them not feeling like they have control over themselves, as a self-love development coach, like when you are happy with yourself, when you're content with yourself, when you love yourself, you're able to love others. And when you respect yourself, you're able to respect others, and there's no issues there. When that is missing, it becomes easier to disrespect others, to misuse others, to violate others' boundaries, because you struggle with that internally. And so that's just, my experience.
Thank you. And before the show, we had a conversation. I don't know if you're willing to maybe share a personal story to maybe alert someone. If so, we'll let you do that. But Shavona, you said something earlier. You said, one of the reasons you gave for people who get caught up in domestic violence situation is that, like, it's the signs that you said we should be looking out for is when people are overly loving and caring and showing affection. I want to be with you. I want to spend the rest of my time. These are affirmations that both sexes want. If you're a girl, you want your man to be telling you that, or your partner to be telling you all these sweet things. You want attention, and it goes both ways. So we want these things. How is it then that when we are getting the things that we want in our relationship to give us affirmation and assurance and security, these are they happen to be the very things that we should be scared of and be looking out for as signs of a potential abuser? It is very, very difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So the key there is too much too soon. After a week of dating, you want to move in. And not saying that, people don't, I guess, love at first sight and all of that. But again, these are flags. These are flags to pay attention to. So it's too much too soon, too fast, overdoing it in the beginning.
Okay.
So,
all right. You were saying, in the beginning. Okay, that makes sense. So listeners, as we engage, we want you to send in your comments and your questions. You can also call in. It's 815-277-5047 to add to what we're doing, because we're all learning. All right. Does one's temperament make them vulnerable to become a victim or an abuser? So,
can you repeat that? What did you mean by that?
Can a person's temperament, so let's say you are choleric or a melancholic, or you know how you have different temperaments, and based of that you act certain ways and you do certain things. My question is, do those temperaments makes someone easily susceptible to, being an abuser or being a victim? Is there any connection there?
I would say that. Arsha, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shavona. I'll add to it. Go ahead.
Okay, so there are certain characteristics, that can contribute to maybe a toxic person, right? Not knowing how to manage your emotions, properly, not being stable emotionally, maybe being an introvert and stuff like that. Like there's those characteristics that contribute to being toxic, but not necessarily abusive, not necessarily trying to take away someone's autonomy, the right to govern themselves. So, people can have toxic characteristics and characteristics that make it more difficult to, if you're an introvert or you feel shy or, you're afraid of asserting yourself or sticking up for yourself, that can make it easier for a person whose goal is to, control you or to be abusive. It makes it more difficult then to get out, and if the right support systems aren't in place, it can make it more difficult, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, one equals the other, one characteristic equals the other.
I got you. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. Ashia, please.
One thing is very clear with the cases that I have seen. So I'm talking about personal experience and the personal data that I've been able to collect is that this is a learned behavior. You see it and you learn it and you act on it. So it needs to be broken very, very quickly. If you don't, then it will escalate and it will become dangerous.
Right.
So it starts with simple control, but then ultimately ends up with where you can actually kill somebody, right? So these are all behaviors you see, and that's what human beings are, right? I mean, we learn by example. If you see something good in society, you're like, wow, I would like to emulate that. But if you see something negative in society and continuously see something negative in your home, that this is how the dynamic between, a man and a woman or whatever the relationship is, right? That intimate relationship, if that's what you've seen growing up, you will find that to be normal and you will continue that behavior. No matter how much in your heart and mind you think, this doesn't seem right, it's wrong, but it's something that you have learned over the number of years that you've seen and been exposed to it. So it is something that is, again, it's not that, because somebody is shy or because somebody is aggressive or because somebody drinks too much. These are all not causes of why somebody would raise their hand, right?
Okay.
These are not characteristics of individuals that will become abusers.
Okay.
But if they have seen it in the past and seen it for a number of multiple years, it becomes a learned behavior. And it needs to be tackled.
Becomes a learned behavior needs to be tackled. Thank you so much, Ashia and Shavona. Ali, I don't know, whilst we're talking, I don't know if there's a comment or an addition that you wanted to make that I missed. Please go ahead and do so.
No, you're doing great, man. Thank you.
All right, great. No, so we have Aqua asked another question. He said, "How do you break it in the early stages?" Great point. He's acknowledging that it's a great point, but he's also asking how you can break this in the early stages.
It's broken in the early stages if I think, somebody in the family recognizes these signs. If you've got kids, school teachers are very, very vigilant, right? They play a very important role. And if they see that a child is behaving in a certain way, which doesn't seem normal, then they need to address either with that child or with the parents. So that is where you come into this, right? That is where the community comes into it. This is where family comes into it. This is where your friends come into it.
Looks like we have a caller in. Ashia, we would like to take this caller, and we'll come back to you. Okay. Just hold on to that thought for us. Caller, if you can turn on the radio or your TV set so we can hear you clearly. Please tell us your name and why you're calling.
My name is Atiyah.
Okay.
I just wanted to call and give you a comment.
Please go ahead.
Yes, there was a comment that was made that it's a learned behavior, and it's very, very true. When she said that it's a learned behavior, I was actually drawn to a movie that I've watched. A lot of people have watched this movie. It's called The Color Purple. It was a movie with Oprah Winfrey, Danny Glover, Whoopi Goldberg. And I remember one of the specific scenes in the movie. Whoopi Goldberg's character is a character that was not loved, and she was abused her whole life. And she had a friend, Miss Seeley. And Miss Seeley's husband came to her and says, "I've been having trouble with Seeley. What do I do?" And she, being an abused woman, told Seeley's husband that you need to beat her. So she herself was being abused. And when the problem of keeping her, the wife in check was brought up, she suggested that he beat his wife. So it's definitely a learned behavior. There's a saying that goes, hurt people hurt people. So that hurt that people have experienced on their own and what they've seen in their lives is what they actually tend to do. I remember another scenario of Chris Brown when he was in a relationship with Rihanna. He abused her. Chris Brown was also a child who saw his mother being abused. So sometimes we see those things as children, and then we hate it, yet it becomes an option. It's an option. I myself personally, I didn't see any abuse towards my mom from my dad when I was growing up. So hitting a woman is not an option for me. It's not something that I even consider. But many people see it around them and they grow up with it. Even though they detest it, it is now implanted in their mind that this is an option. This is a possibility. So sometimes when stressful situations get to that point, they use it. So it's definitely a learned behavior. It's definitely that's something where through experience, it continues and it goes forward to affect more and more people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my brother Ate, for calling in. I think he made a very, very, very excellent point there. We really appreciate your contribution. I don't know if any of you wanted to comment on what he just said.
No, he's actually very, very right. You know, this is a learned behavior, and again, the only way that we can really break this behavior is if people in the community are vigilant.
Okay.
And people are aware. And how do you get people aware? Right? I mean, what we do at Empowering Women is that, you know, we will reach out into schools, into institutions, into community centers and tell them about what domestic violence looks like. And if children are sitting there listening to that talk, they'll be like, wow, okay, so this is not supposed to be normal. And then you tell them that, you know, who are the people around you that can help, whether it's your school counselor, whether it's, agencies like ours, or even your physician, your primary care physician that you go to. You can have that private dialogue with them and let them know that something is not right in the home.
Right.
But you have to give these women, these children, these victims the opportunity and tell them that, look, these are the places you can go to. These are the people that will really help you.
Somebody's asking, wouldn't the experience, and I think it's Aqua, he says, wouldn't the experience, I'm assuming he's talking about the negative experience. Yes, the experience her teach you to do better in your own relationship. And sometimes I think that a lot of us think that should be the default, but many a times it is not. Right. I mean, you had a bad experience and, more often than not, you want to kind of like carry that on somebody else because you have a gap in you and you want to heal, you want to fill that gap, or you have this insecurity or this hurt in you and you are trying to feel good about yourself. So you have to carry whatever hurts onto somebody else. And maybe Well, it's 15 minutes past 7 p.m. You're still watching the Progressive Mind Show, and you're listening to us on My Star Radio, based off in Washington, D.C. My Star Radio is a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. My guest this evening is Ali Jaffrey, Shavona Nicole, and Arshia Hasnan. Thanks. We want to thank our audience for calling in and sharing your ideas on the feed so far. Priscilla EBD Thomas just joined us. She says, well spoken, Shavona Nicole. Thank you, Priscilla, for joining in. We want to, and then Johnny Wood says, my fear is that domestic violence might increase in this pandemic. Oh, yes. I know it's on the rise. Let's look at, because of time, let's look at quickly. Ali, I wanted you to tell us about some techniques of self-defense. Maybe somebody out there might need it. Briefly tell us the importance and how someone can learn some quick techniques, and then I can play a video for people to watch some of the things that you've been teaching people.
Yes, I think with the self-defense aspect, you have to remember that a lot of these guys, as both Shavona and Arshia have mentioned, it's not even about hurting these women, it's about asserting dominance. And because they are asserting dominance, there's a few things that they do, and then there's certain things that they don't. Like, it would be very rare, when guys fight with each other, they're kicking and punching, and it's just a flurry that's going on. Mm-hmm. That's not what domestic abuse looks. Domestic abuse may be as simple as they grab a wrist, and while they're in your face, they're just squeezing your wrist as hard as they possibly can. And again, the idea is, I'm dominant here, you should be submissive, and you have no control, and I can do whatever I want to you. That is the message that they're sending in the physicality that they show. And because these techniques are super common that these guys are doing, it's also, we know from in the martial arts community who's, they know how to get away from these without, something super fancy. Like, I know there's martial arts like Krav Maga, where like if someone grabs your wrist, you poke their eyes out, then you kick them in the nuts, then you so it's nothing. We don't want it to be super drastic. We want it to be simple yet effective. And so if you do share one of those videos, you'll be able to demonstrate how simple these things really are, but how important it is for you to know them.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. We will take a quick minute to watch this video. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Ali Jaffrey, and I'm here with my mom. And in this video, we're going to teach you how to break free if someone grabs onto you with both hands instead of one. Okay? So in this situation, if I'm holding on to her like this, or I could be holding on like that, what she's going to do is she's going to make a fist first. Once she's made a fist, she's going to come from the top. She's going to grab her own fist, and she pulls right back. Okay? I'm going to show it to you again with this arm, nice and slow. So I grab her. The first thing she does is she makes a fist. She's going to come, she grabs, and she pulls that hand straight towards her forehead. So again, this is super easy. It's simple, but it works. Okay? It doesn't matter how big the other person is who's grabbing you or how strong they are. It's just simple mechanics. Anytime they grab onto you, you make a fist, you come from the top, you grab your fist, you move it towards your forehead, and you break free. Thank you.
Well, that is a very simple technique, and I'm sure you do have other simple ones that you show people. And so, your YouTube page, if people want to see more of this simple techniques, can you put it information out there?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I can put it in the private in the chat box.
Okay, all right, that'll be nice. Well, it's 7:20. The conversation is domestic violence, overcoming the challenges. Please help share the feed. Royal Black Jesus, he just gave me the correction. He says, my brother, it is not Black Jesus, you have to add royal to it. So, royal, bro, share the feed. I haven't seen you share it yet, so I'm going to call you out. Again, he's my brother, so I can mess with him. Pastor Richard Teria is also watching us. Pastor Richard, good to see you. Please help share the feed for us so we can spread the good word. Ella Obaya, my own sweet sister, is also here. This is a family platform. Okay, so we are glad to be blessed with so many great people and so many great loving people. Abna Nayab says yes. Amna, can you please help share the feed for us? Johnny Woods, please share. Edith Williams, thank you so much for hanging in. Share the feed as we share this important message. Shavona, would you like to share a story that can motivate someone or create an awareness out there quickly? Because
yes. Well, again, a lot of the clients that I work with are trying to work on the mindset shift, and they are trying to, build back up their confidence, build back up their self-esteem. And so I've had, client after client that first, and working with them and going through the hypnosis, there I have a very, personalized script for them, using the words that they use, after a consultation, using the phrases, the belief system, really digging deep into their belief systems to then, go in on a subconscious level and do that healing. On a subconscious level, rewrite their story, make suggestions that their subconscious is really open to, so that, after the hypnotherapy, they feel empowered and they feel, loved, and they feel, all the things that have been torn down after this toxic relationship. And so almost immediately after, 1 or 2 sessions after that, it's like, it becomes very normal and very regular to have this, newfound confidence. Like, no, I can find better. No, I do deserve better. No, I want to work on better. And so, and having them to really be able to detach from these toxic situations is really key. Abuse, and especially physical abuse, is a little different in that, it requires safety planning. It requires, finding a support system and other resources, which is why organizations like Arshus is so important, because all of those things need to be in place first. Having a mindset shift, a mindset change, within a day or two for an abuser can trigger them to escalate pretty quickly. And so, and so just the women that I work with that feel empowered, that have the resources that they need, and to feel whole within themselves first, so that they can detach and break that cycle of abuse. Again, doing work with someone who is being, physically abused is a little different, and other sources need to be put in place, but that's possible too. And women that go to shelters, and women that, build a separate support system and, have things in place so that they can have the resources that they need to start again. I've seen that as well, and I have experience with that as well.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.